I'm visiting my brother's cabin in Washington State. He let me come here after my divorce, get away from all the nonsense and clear my head for a couple of weeks. It's beautiful out here. The quaint little hut, exactly what I had been expecting. It's surrounded by dense forest, and you have to take a long dirt road to reach it. Before I arrived, my brother informed me that he had stocked the hut with groceries, enough to last a month if I decided I wanted to stay that long. He was leaving it up to me, knowing what hell my breakup had been. I had lost almost everything, and as a gesture of goodwill, he had extended a hand and offered his cabin to me. It was a welcome sanctuary, and upon arrival, I found myself blissfully calm. The woods were alive with sound. The creak of the wood, the gentle rustle of the wind through the trees, and the chirp of the birds in conversation. It was all so serene. The first couple of days were wonderful, and I felt like I could finally breathe again. The horrible legal battle that I'd been engaged in with my wife had taken the wind out of my sails. But out here, I let the warm breeze envelop me with new life and energy. To my surprise, it had been beautiful the first couple of days. The gentle golden rays of sunlight filtering through the canopy of green overhead. The first 3 days I spent a lot of time walking through the woods, isolated from everything and everyone. I was alone out here, a stranger to the surrounding green kingdom. I let my mind wander from the chains that it had been bound with, my thoughts drifting toward what I would do in my new life. Possibilities began to blossom before me, and I actually started discovering hope in my future again. But then the rain came. I had heard on the news that a 7-day storm was heading my way, so it came as no surprise when the sky darkened. As a resident of Washington, I was no stranger to long bouts of rain, and this was no different. I just finished eating dinner when the rain started. Gentle pit-patters on the roof that eventually evolved into a full-blown gale. I started a fire and pulled a chair up to the window, watching the storm. It was cozy, and I found peace in watching the chaos that I was protected from. And then I heard something on the roof. I cocked my ear to listen, the small cabin lit only by the glow of the fireplace. At first, I thought it was just the rain, but after a few moments, I realized it sounded like someone was running around up there. I didn't know what to make of it. I assumed it had been some kind of animal, but it sounded much bigger. I grabbed the blankets off the chair I was sitting in and pulled it up to my chin, creeped out by the noise. After a little bit, the sound stopped. My heart was in my throat, and my eyes darted to the front door. Thunder boomed overhead, and I suddenly felt incredibly far away from civilization. I shivered, despite the fire, and turned my eyes to look out the window I was sitting in front of. Lightning flashed, and I suddenly leaned forward, heart racing. Something wasn't right out there. I thought my eyes had been playing tricks on me, and I anxiously waited for more lightning. I forced myself to calm down, sure that what I'd just seen was paranoia, brought on by fear. The world was illuminated once again by a bright blast of lightning, and my eyes went wide. Mere feet from the window, the rain seemed to bend around the shapes of 3 invisible figures. They stood about 6 feet tall, the rain outlining their still forms. I swallowed hard, waiting for another blast of lightning, and then it came. The shapes remained. They were immobile, and I suddenly felt eyes on me, as if they had come with the storm to watch me. I retreated from the window, feeling exposed and afraid, and went and sat in my bed. I was terrified, so shaken by the bizarre forms that I began to have a hard time breathing. I took a few long, deep pulls of air, willing myself to settle down. My heart rate slowed. I started convincing myself that I had imagined the shapes. Between the rain and the dark, it was easy to mistake shadows and shapes that weren't actually there. Just as I was about to get back up, I heard something walking on the roof again. I gripped the sides of my bed as I listened to the heavy footsteps walk closer and then finally stop, directly over my head. I crawled between the covers and held my breath, eyes wide in a panic. What the hell was out there? Another flash of lightning lit the sky and I glanced at the window. It was right there, its invisible form parting the rain like a curtain. It was watching me. I squeezed my eyes shut and pulled the covers over my head. I heard myself whimpering and I slapped a hand over my mouth. What were these things? What did they want? Then the thought slammed into me with the force of a locomotive. Where was the third one? That's when I heard the front door crash open. I cried out in fear, shaking like a child as heavy, wet footsteps walked across the cabin towards me. It stopped by the side of my bed, and I felt drops of water falling from its body onto the blanket. I could hear it breathing, a sucking sound pulled deep into moist lungs. As I bawled into myself under the covers, terrified, it spoke. Its voice sounded like rain in an odd, stuttered inflection of its vocal cords. I didn't move, it didn't breathe, praying that this nightmare would end. I didn't know what these things were, what they wanted, but I sensed danger. I sensed they wanted to hurt me, and it seemed if I looked at them, they could. I stayed balled up under the blankets and kept my trembling mouth shut. It repeated in the same wet voice, its words dribbling from its mouth like running water. Again, I didn't move. I was absolutely paralyzed with fear. I kept my eyes closed and the blanket firmly around me. My stomach churned with terror and my breath was hot in the enclosed space. I don't know how long I waited. Eventually, I heard the thing retreat, slamming the door behind it. Even with it gone, I remained where I was, refusing to move. I listened to the rain crash down above me, the restless storm never ceasing in its violence. I don't know if I fell asleep or passed out, but the next thing I remember was opening my eyes to dim gray light. I hesitantly pulled the blanket from me and surveyed the cabin. The fire had died out, and the scene before me was still in early morning light. The rain still thundered above as sheets of it were driven from the dark sky. I slowly got out of bed and went to the window. "Please," I muttered, voice cracking. The three figures stared back at me, the rain outlining their still figures. I dropped to the floor out of sight, a hand to my chest. I crawled over to the small kitchen and reached up to retrieve my cell phone. It wasn't there. I jumped to my feet, scouring the surface for where I knew I left it the previous night. It was gone, but a long, wet, dark smudge stained the wood. Starting at the center and running to the edge, that thing had taken my phone. I was trapped. "What do you want from me?" I screamed. "What the fuck do you want from me?" The storm offered me no answer. "Leave me alone," I whispered. "Just leave me alone, please." It's been 3 weeks now. The storm hasn't ceased. I don't know what happened. Something is seriously wrong. The sky remains a dim gray. The day-night cycle is stuck in some horrific limbo. I don't think I'm ever getting out of this cabin. I'm almost out of food, and I wonder how long I can last before starvation drives me outside these walls. They're still there. The endless rain painting their figures in the air. They watch. Always, they watch. When I hear one of them running across the roof, I sprint to my bed and bury myself under the covers. As soon as I do, another one slams the front door open and comes and stands over me. It tells me to look at it, commands me to look at it. I can't. I won't. Something about its voice has begun to sound familiar. The more it speaks to me, the more I begin to recognize it. It sounds like me. And last night, when one of them was standing over my bed, it said something different. It told me things should have been different. It told me it was disappointed in the way my life had turned out. It told me I needed to acknowledge my mistakes. It told me it was time to let another one of them try.